So we're going to resume our program with first of our two submitted talks in this session. This is Vincenzo Suriani, and I'll let you introduce yourself and get started.
Okay, I'm a PhD student from Sapienza University of Rome, and I'm going to present a work that we worked on 1 year and something ago, and for a competition. And so the competition was actually the SciRoc competition, and so in the set of the competition about robotics and human-robot interaction, there is SciRoc, that is a competition that each time tries to create new environments to challenge robot in human-shaped scenarios. And we held this competition during pandemic, and was hard to organize it and to have in-person participation. So we had to come up with a new solution for allow all the team participating remotely, physically, and in all the possible modalities. And so we were responsible for one of the episodes, and we are presenting all the episodes of this competition. And we came up with 3 modalities and an environment that is a coffee shop. So we put a robot in a coffee shop, and we try to test different functionalities, and we use it even to come out with new solution for try to guarantee real human-robot interaction, even with remote participation. So before this pandemic, actually, there were few robotics competition in remote simulated participation. One of those was the RoboCup at Home that has been held in 2013. And after the pandemic, we had more RoboCup held in these modalities. From those, we had some RoboCup related competition that were about soccer, actually. And especially the one, the RoboCup 2021 that has been held worldwide in a distributed fashion, with 6 fields distributed in all around the world. And then even the Open Cloud Robot Table Organization Challenge in 2020. But actually there were no HRI in all this competition. And so in the designing of the SciRoc 2 competition, we tried to integrate even HRI in the set of the functionality benchmark. And so then we tried to come up with a new set of challenge. And there were a short about SciRoc competition. It's a funded project from the European Union, and tries to bring robotics in smart cities. And the first one has been held in 2019 in Milton Keynes, and the second one has been held in Bologna in Italy in September 2021. And so we are going to focus only on the second one, and in this one there were 5 scenarios. The first one is the coffee shop, in which we are going to have the discussion up to today. The second one was about the sign language generation and understanding with the robot. The third one was about having a robot with a shopping cart, being able to do a very complex path by pushing it and driving it. And the episode 4 was about emergency, so it was about delivering medical equipment in a specific place. And the 5th one was pick and pack, so to manage grocery objects. So we are going to talk about the first one, and in this we build a coffee shop resembling a real one, with 6 tables and a counter. Table had different status at the beginning of each run. So we had table that had people waiting to be served, table with customer already served, table to be clean, table empty, and table to receive new customer. So the challenge for the robot was to detect the status of all the table and report it to the counter. So the first step was about having this navigation of the robot and to collect all this information. Then he had to sort all this table and reach those who had people but without any object related to the coffee shop, so ready to be served. And so robot had to ask for order, accept the set of order that was read from a menu, and then robot had to get to the counter, ask for those items. And actually in the counter there were a person that was on purpose changing the set of items asked by the person, and robot had to identify and correct the mistake made on purpose by the person in the counter. And finally, robot has to deliver those items to the table. There were a few functionality benchmark involved, so the perception of the person, of the object, navigation, and speech interaction. The challenge was to have it during a pandemic, so we chose to have 3 modalities of participation. One was the on-site participation, so team came physically in Bologna and with the real robot and the real environment. Then we had another modality of participation that was that robots were able to use the real environment in Bologna, but sending their software from remote. But this was still nice, but we experienced that robot teams that didn't have the robot, the same robot we were using in the competition in their own university, had difficulties in having this kind of setup or participating in this kind of modalities. So we proposed a third one that was a simulated participation in which teams were developing the software remotely on the computer on site, but still interacting with the real customer. And so we built a container that contains all the set of functionalities, but this single container was able to run in all the modalities. So one single code base for all the 3 modalities, and we publicly release it. And so we had to decide how to preserve each HRI in all those modalities. Clearly, it was easy to have it in the on-person participation and even on remote on-person participation, because still there were the coffee shop, but it was hard to preserve it in simulation. So since in simulation, with respect to the real environment, there were two human figures involved, the one in the counter and the customers, we choose to remove the person in the counter, but to preserve real customer. So for preserve real customer, we blend the simulation with the real environment. And so robot was able to choose whenever to look at the virtual camera in the simulation, and whenever was the case to look at the webcam outside of the simulation. And so in this way, we were able to give access to real customers that were seated in Bologna, to people that were competing in simulation in this challenge. So for the first part, so to have the robot being able to interact with the environment, we just create a set of predefined raw services, and the Tiago robot here was in charge of call them in order to have the interaction with the object and with the environment. So here, for example, robot is asking for new items to the counter. There is asking for the replacement of a specific object. Here is asking to have the item load on its own track. And there it's delivering them to the table. On the other side, there were the interaction with the customer. So in Bologna there were resembling coffee shop environment here with the 6 table I was mentioning, but in simulation was hard to have this kind of interaction. So we move two customer out of the simulation, and robot was able to switch between the environment in the simulation and the customer outside of the simulation. In all those interactions, actually in those three modalities, we try to preserve the interaction with the real customer. So our goal was to keep real person in all these three modalities, even if there were the pandemic, it was hard to have a normal, so to speak, competition. Here we can see a run of the on-site competition, and here robot is inspecting all the tables. So this is the first phase. Stop this one. And here, for example, robot is now it's the empty table is going to another table, and during each run there were different setups, so different number of tables, different number of customer, a different number of empty or table to be served, and so on. Once robot finished the first inspection, tell to the judges how was the status, and it was okay. Robot start asking for order. In fact, here he came to this table because in this table there were no objects related to the coffee shop, and so asked for item. Then asked the same item to the counter, but there were on purpose a mistake. The counter put the item on the robot. Robot was in charge of serving them to the table, and finally the run ends. Same happened in the simulation. Here it's me that I'm interacting with one of the submitted code to the challenge after the competition. And here there were the chance of having still the interaction with the customer, but outside of the simulation. So robot was inspecting the table, was taking the order, asking for the placement, and then delivering. So in the evaluation, we try to integrate differently from the SciRoc 1 competition, HRI as one of the task benchmark functionality. And so the task benchmarking functionality is based on the concept of the performance classes. And so there were a set of performance classes in each phase that we have seen in this competition. And by counting the number of achievements during all the competition, we evaluate the task benchmark of the robot. And we share the same set of functionality in between all the three modalities. So even the simulation was in charge of the same set of the modalities. And we evaluate the verbal and non-verbal interaction, for example, even the percent of the robot in evaluating the run of the team. We had some complaint actually on the standardization of the hardware, because remote team that participate in simulation, since we were in a huge environment with a lot of noise, asked for having a set of standard microphone and camera for having this set up. And we didn't take care of this in organizing the event. So we tried in this competition to attempt to make a little attempt in reducing the gap between simulated and real world scenarios to benchmark HRI capabilities. And we came out with these three modalities to participate in order to preserve interaction with real person. And we had 6 teams actually participating in all the three modalities, 3 on the real modalities, 2 in the simulated one, and 1 participating remotely with the robot on the real scenario. So this is a time even to have remote benchmark facilities in order to decouple the place in which we are testing the software with the place in which we are developing. So it's not time even in decoupling the develop and the testing location of the software. We release the content. So if there are any questions.
Time for one question. Maybe just, do you envision that this setup of the 3 different modalities could be used for other types of tasks? You know, maybe something more complex involving contact manipulation, anything like that?
Yeah, initially we were even considering to have object manipulation actually in the competition, but then we simplified for all the scenario, all the modalities, is because we're probably in our mind were too much challenging, and so we in simulation we provide the set of services in order to have robot do not taking care of the manipulation, and in real environment where customer has to bring to take their own item from the robot and counter putting them in the robot, but still it would be possible to extend to other functionalities.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Maybe while we switch over.
Yeah, sorry, there is another question.
Please go ahead. I'm just going to switch over to the other.
Okay.
So in general robotic competitions, it's pretty straightforward to like structure